as I lead a monkey bar, she decided, oh, I'm going to dive through his legs. And she quickly realized that there was no room. There's
just not enough room between your quads.
Right. This actually happened.
Dude, my muscles are in the way.
She was actually my height.
I'm just saying, Alicia and Cassie, you have to find that link and put it. and if you can just put it on a loop, that would be the best. Right? King, king, king.
Welcome to another zany episode of Nerdy West Coast Swing, the podcast with pixels where the anchors are out of this world and the points don't matter. Normally, we're here to train your eyes so you can learn faster and dance better, but today is our 1-year anniversary episode, and we're hosting an amazing panel about shorter leaders in West Coast Swing. I'm Cassie Winter.
I'm Alicia Marshall. If you're wondering who are we to be hosting this panel, Cassie and I both have extensive training and experience in both solo and partner dancing. We have about 22 and 24 years. So I want to remind everyone that is joining us, please keep your mics and your videos off. Like Cassie said earlier, if you have any questions, please enter them into the chat while we're going. If you have a question that is not currently being talked about, it would be best to wait until the end when we open it up to any questions from anyone else. And let's see. So I think let's just talk about the context for this panel really quickly. So we wanted to bring all of these wonderful guys on with us to talk about leading someone that is either your height or taller than you. And, you know, we wanted to mention that it's not just relevant for those that are short. We also wanted to mention that it would also be really relevant for a lot of women that also lead, seeing that, you know, women tend to be shorter. So that being said, I want to introduce our guys for you guys. When I introduce you guys, if you could state your height, that would be great. So first, Robert Royston.
I'm an incredibly tall 5'8".
Perfect. Myles Munroe.
5'4" or 163 centimeters for anyone joining us in metric.
Perfect. Ben Morris.
173 centimeters, which sounds a little bit better than 5'8".
Perfect. And Maxime Zzaoui.
I'm 170 centimeters, and I don't know how it is in shoe, thumbs, hair, elbows, or whatever measurement.
5'7".
5'7", right? Does that put him 5'7"?
Yeah, he's 5'7".
Right. So Ben, you're 5'8" too. We're gonna have to stand back to back at some point and see who and see.
Yeah, I'm like right between 5'8" and 5'9". So I think if I stand on my right leg, I'm more 5'8". If I stand on my left leg, I'm 5'8.5". They're not quite even.
This is going to happen. We're going to be standing back to back at some point. I need to know, and I'm going to have to take into the hair factor.
Back to back.
Right.
Well, yeah, like I've got. If we compare my bald spot in the back to just your head, we should be even.
Perfect.
I'll script it for the next Rose City.
Totally. Yes. Done and done.
Totally.
Done and done.
So shall we get on to our first question, which Cassie, I believe you're asking.
Yes. And before I do that real quick, if you have not seen our Tall Follows panel from last fall, it's on our YouTube channel. It's a great episode and complement to what we're doing today. So first question, and Robert, you get to answer this one first, is in general, what do you automatically go into the dance adjusting or paying more attention to when leading someone taller than you versus someone your height or shorter?
I'll be perfectly honest with you. For me, it's not about, I don't really go, this person's taller, this person's shorter, this person's skinnier, this person's heavier. I don't do any of that. Like for me, I collect the information that's at my arm immediately, and then subconsciously, just a whole bunch of things go into play, right? So like if I was to get one back in the day, if I were to get a Charlotte Bott, who's a little closer to my own height, or Marianne Nunez, I don't go, well, Charlotte's taller, and because I've had to learn my dance in a way where I'm probably not going to do a lot of things anyways. I'm probably not going to do a ton of ducks anyways, right? because lots of times the follows are around my height. So my repertoire of movement tends to work pretty well with any height that I lead. So there's not a pre-thought for me. Like I collect whatever information's there. I come into it just like a clean palette. And I go, like, for me, it's more about how present are they visually with me and what their connection is, far less than about are they taller than me or not. Like it just doesn't even come into my mind at this point.
Okay. Myles?
Okay, so at this point, it's a subconscious thought, but it's something I had to learn growing up, and that's spatial awareness and understanding that when I have a taller follower, I actually have to stand closer to them as we pass by to maximize my reach. If I stand further away, the angle actually makes me shorter. So that's a subconscious, but there is a threshold for me right at about 6 foot of a follower where I do have to start thinking, can't do ducks. I can't do monkey bars and things just because I can't physically get my shoulder high enough to compensate without having to jump or really like kind of contort my body. But that, again, it's a learned process over time. And I was very lucky as a young dancer that my first pro-am teacher was 6'1". And so I had to learn that at 11 years old, where I was 4'7" at the time. You know, I really had to learn how to stretch and adjust and not cop out by free spinning or going to the neck type thing. So that's pretty much the only thing I really am thinking / aware of.
Okay, awesome. Ben?
Yeah, so I mean, same as Robert and Myles are saying, like most of it's subconscious at this point, although I think that kind of holds true for, I mean, almost everything we do is subconscious, but like, you know, it's like we break it, I can sort of break down some of the things that I'm doing without thinking about, which like the thing Myles said about being taller or being closer to a taller follower, especially on turns, like makes it easier for me to get my hand to the other side of her head. Just in general, I tend to notice like how well ducks work with a certain partner when I'm dancing with them, which is, you know, which may or may not be having to do with the height of my partner. Like some followers who are taller will get pretty low to make ducks work really smoothly, and some shorter followers don't like doing ducks. So just in general, I try to pick up on like how smoothly ducks work with my follower before I continue to do them, if that makes sense. And then I kind of automatically, like, I'll put myself into sometimes kind of funky, I don't think great looking positions to make it feel comfortable for my follower. So like, I'll do this sometimes to like make something work for my follower who's taller. Like I love, if you look back at Jen and I's one Scotch, one bourbon routine, there's this one funky turn that we do that like, I mean, she's not even taller, but just the way that turn is constructed, she goes like 3 o'clock and then I have to turn her on this really funky angle. And if you watch her, it looks awesome. But if you watch me, I'm like this, like, and I'm on like my tiptoes and I'm like to make it, and it just looks ridiculous on my end, but it's like, it's just what I do to make it work for my follower. And then the other thing that I notice sometimes is I feel like with being taller, followers tend to also be like longer, like the wingspan is longer. And so sometimes I feel like that makes things in the slot feel different, stretch out more, sometimes take a little bit longer because there's more distance to cover. And so I just sometimes have to make sure I like am patient enough for that or take that into account that there's this extra space and movement to fill.
I want to highlight something
everything that I can think of.
I want to highlight something you said about reaching to the other side of the follow's head, because I feel like not enough people realize that. Because as a tall follow, I get to like the center of my head all the time, and that just breaks my frame. Right. And I disengage to protect myself, and then but I'm no longer following.
You know,
and
it's a problem with teachers, because teachers need to teach that most of the circles that are being created around a follow's head, unless the follow is at least 6 inches shorter than you, most leaders aren't creating a perfect circle. All the circles are happening on kind of an elliptical state, right? Like all of them, a little bit more for the 4 of us you have here are going to have a little bit more of that angled right state. But everybody, unless you're like, you know, John Lindo dancing with Sarah Van Drake. Very few differences are so great that you get to create a perfect circle around the follow's head. Very few. Most of them are tilted, but so we teach people this circle around the head, and then ladies are like, it follows. So it's a problem actually for me in the teaching system, because unless you're really, really tall and the follow's really, really short, there's gonna have to be an angle. You're going to have to lift your arm at the far end of the circle.
All right. Maxime, do you have an answer for that first question?
Yeah, I feel like my problem is I have the feeling that I'm taller than I'm actually am.
Because you're dancing with Tori all the time.
No, it's that's funny, but I used to train with Virginie Grondin a lot, so that's when I started West Coast Swing. It's basically with her, and I was switching between Virginie Grondin and Virginie Massart, which the height difference was like it's a big height difference, but I feel like I didn't really have trouble to manage. So I believe that Virginie Grondin helped me a lot in that process. So I feel like she compensated. So I don't know if it probably wasn't a good thing for my training to dance with taller people, because when I danced with Emmeline after, and I started to duck her, because I'm like, oh, she's shorter than Nini. And I started to duck her, and I feel like, oh, that touches my arm. And I'm like, oh, why? That doesn't work with Emmeline, that works with Nini. And I said, oh, come on, Nini, don't help me as much as you used to. So that's funny. And I'm that kind of person who's trying to reach really here. I don't want to do too big of a movement, I'm really trying to play with because that's also what I like about West Coast Swing. And that's the difference between East Coast Swing, that they have really big movement, and West Coast Swing that they kind of short, the rotations on top of the partner's head. And I feel like I was shooting for really short, and that didn't work with Emmeline, that worked with Nini. So I'm like, so maybe that was Nini helping me in the process. So I tried to adapt with all of these kind of mistakes that I was doing. And Myles said, he tried to figure out his entire life with his size. That's what actually I have to deal with my entire life. So I don't know. I feel like I'm adapting. And when I dance with a taller partner like Brandy, I'm trying to work lower stuff. And maybe I try to work with I don't want to say handicap, but I'm the one who dug myself instead of to dug her, and that also plays that's fun, that's funny. He's being funny. So I don't know. I'm trying to play around my handicap.
The ease at which you get to duck under somebody's arm like Bryn Anderson is kind of fun. When you do that, you're like, oh, this is so easy.
The old Shorty George method.
That's true. I remember that I was dancing with Mackenzie, and she's wearing heels, and she's like, wait, and everybody's like, oh, Maxime is gonna dance with Mackenzie, and I'm like, why not? And I remember that I take her leg and I go under her leg, and that's obviously easier than doing with Sarah, So
not even impressive when Maxime goes under Mackenzie's leg. That's not even impressive.
No.
Yeah, but it's playing with what's in front of you. It's
inevitable that I will always draw Mackenzie in a prelim.
Oh yeah,
every time. Yep, it's always. And I am, I think, technically the shortest guy, because between Maxime and I, there's Philippe Byrne. He's an inch and a bit taller than me. I don't think there's anybody shorter than me.
There's the juniors division.
Thibaut. Oh no, Thibaut is my height. No.
Yeah, no.
Oh, yeah. There's going to be an assembly line of you all standing against the wall next to each other.
Right. I have to say, I didn't really when I was in country, it wasn't a thing until I got into swing, because I was very heavy when I very first started dancing. I'm still thick, I'm not a skinny guy. So for me, when I very first started dancing, and I was when I first started in the swing world, I was almost 70 pounds more than I am now. So I always felt myself to be bigger than the follow anyways. Just overall, I was a bigger human than them. Does that make sense?
No,
So-
but actually,
Yeah.
what he's saying, that totally makes sense, because I feel like I have more problems with my lightweight than my short height.
Right. So I felt like the power to weight ratio and their ability, like the taller the follow is, the longer their levers and pulleys, right? So their ability to negatively affect shorter leaders' balance grows exponentially. So the ability for a taller follower to create a leverage system that negatively affects a shorter leader is great. But because I was always, it didn't matter that I was shorter, I was big. I was 250 pounds. They weren't going to pull me no matter how tall they were.
Grounded.
Right?
We're grounded.
I was grounded. Exactly. I was grounded. No, I was fat. But because I was a big, so I always just saw myself as bigger than them. So it was never, because none of them were going to negatively affect me, right? They didn't, the power to weight ratio was just too much.
And you have long arms too, Robert. You have a
No,
long
I have
reach.
short arms. I have short arms. I bet you my
Really?
arms are close to yours. You know, Jason Colosino and I used to talk about this all the time because Jason Colosino was a half an inch shorter than I was. He was 5'7.5". But
But he's got a crazy.
we would, yeah, but his wingspan was ridiculous. Like it was so my girlfriend's 5'2", so Mia's 5'2", and I only have an inch worth of arm length on her. I actually have very short arms. Like short arms relative to my height.
Thanks
Yeah,
for learning
Play
today.
big. I just play big on video. That's all. I
Jason
just
would
I
dance
just
with
play big on
Lorene.
video.
Okay, so our next question is, do you adjust the styling in your own dancing to focus more on the connection?
And Myles, you get to take this one first.
Ooh, to focus on the connection. I guess, yeah, a little bit. Like even though I'm shorter, I tend to dance a little more athletic. So I'm a little more down in my general dance. So I pitch probably a little bit more than the average. When I'm dancing with a tall follower, I don't necessarily stand up more, but I would say my styling comes a lot more into my shoulders and not so much into my legs and hips. So I may not do long lines to the side. I'll do shorter strides, but do a lot of elevation or a lot of lifted type movements. Not necessarily to try and match my follower, because I'll often take them with me, but I feel like we can dance more on the level where people see her or his movement, which as the taller person will tend to be a little bit more up top. So I don't want to dance and make my dance too bottom heavy, and that would look really offset. So I won't physically grow, but I will change my movement to be a lot more upper body head dominated, for sure.
I feel like it doesn't matter. Like I don't feel the difference in my styling, rather than I'm dancing with the tall follower or a short follower. I feel like it's just like my playing action. And you know what Robert was saying, I actually adapt my weight more because I'm a lightweight partner. So I'm more worried about that, because it's easier, like for the follower, it's easier for her to pull me. So I would actually go, it doesn't matter even if she's tall. If she has the tendency of pulling me, I go in the floor even more. So I have the tendency of even lower myself, strangely. So I don't know if it's a good thing, but that's how I feel it. And that doesn't really affect my style. I don't feel like it affects my styling. I just play with the music as I feel it, you know. It's just like way more into my weight. That's what's changing for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Makes good. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right. How about you take it, Robert, since Ben
Yeah.
is
So
still
for me,
attempting to rejoin us.
Bye, Ben.
yeah, right. So the adjustment I make is less about the height. I mean, there is some, if I'm dancing with Mackenzie so for me, if I'm dancing with Mackenzie, or if I'm dancing with Bryn, or if I'm dancing with Cameo, who all have like very long legs, I might look stylistically and go, ooh, how can I use their length, right? How can I use their length? So I don't necessarily make an adjustment for me as much as I go, how can I use that leg action over my head or whatever, you know what I mean? How can, like Mackenzie and I do this thing where I slowly lower her into the splits. I've had her a couple of times where we do that. And so I go, how can I, like for me, I immediately go, how can I use the tools that the follower is providing, right? So the adjustment I make most of the time, the first adjustment I make, I call it weight and rate. So like how much weight is she applying to the system, which is something that Maxime would be saying too, like how much weight is she applying? Because then that's going to figure out for me how much I'm countering that weight and what I need to do to counter that weight. And then for me, it's rate, like how fast does she move from one foot to the other? Do I feel the transition of leg? So her rate of weight transfer and how much weight she applies to the system. So weight and rate are the first two things I immediately will make any adjustment I need to for my style. Then if I'm then going to make adjustment to the tools at hand. What are my tools at hand? And if the tools I have at hand that she has really long legs, if I can use that to my advantage, I will. Right. So I look to the tools that she provides and weight and rate. Those are my immediate adjustments. And I can do that even before the song starts. Like once I draw her, and I usually start to move the follower, do something before the song starts. So that's for me gathering information. Like that's not like some sort of little, you know, funny Robert Royston thing. It's me actually gathering information. I'm gathering information about weight, rate, you know, what can I do here so that by the time the song starts, I've gathered lots of information for any adjustments I need to make.
I mean, and we can see it when we watch like each other's dancing. We don't see a drastically change of styling. So it's more like inside some like the sensation and stuff. So I mean, he like that's exactly what I felt. Robert, you explained it just better than I do.
All right, I'm here now. Can you guys hear
We
me?
can hear you. Yes.
Oh,
okay,
Can you
he's
hear
back.
us?
Oh,
Yes,
you're-
we're just using the cell phone now. It seems to be working for now.
It says Megan
Um,
iPhone.
Okay, I'm on Megan's iPhone, so because my phone's in the room. All right, I missed what Robert said, but I think there's a 90% chance it's
This is the point at which Zoom decided to have a small seizure. As you will plainly see, I am struggling to get everybody in the frame for the video recording. 'Twas a futile task. Please hold while I struggle for a minute or so until I decide to just give up and switch to speaker view. Thank you. Bye.
I missed what Robert said, but I think there's a 90% chance it's exactly what I would say, which is something along the lines of, sorry about that. I just adjust to the follow anyway. So the height thing, I don't feel like there's
He didn't say that, Ben. He was talking about cooking stuff. What are you
perfect working out and stuff.
Yeah,
So
working out.
I feel like like stylistically, I don't necessarily feel like I specifically have a certain style for tall followers. I just kind of change my style.
Bye, Ben. He's fired, dude.
By the way, when he comes back, we should all start moving in slow motion.
Yes.
He sounds like one of those review videos.
What about Robert? You talk for Ben because apparently that's what you said that he said.
Well, let me tell you something. I can talk for Ben because Ben and I sit next to each other at almost every Jack and Jill, and we talk. And what I love about Ben's style, just mute him. What I love about Ben's style is that Ben doesn't change who he is. He just adjusts to the system that the follow provides him. You know what I mean? Exactly what I just said. Like Ben just adjusts to the tools at hand.
Huh?
Wonderful, Ben. Thank you. That's great. Now, are you guys going to ask about like the negative side of that?
We have two Bens now. That's the best.
God dang it. I didn't get to hear the end of what Robert said. Killing
It'll be
me.
on the recording.
Ah. He probably answered accurately for me.
Ben,
though.
I said you don't change your style, but you adapt to the tools provided to you by the follow. So if the follow's got
that
long
makes
legs, you adapt to that. If the follow's got short legs, you
I
adapt.
take that.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I mean, I dance completely different with Virginie and Mackenzie, and they're like a similar height, but I don't dance the same with them at all.
Right. Well, because the flexibility is different, right? Like we know that, like, oh my God, if I can use Mackenzie's flexibility, you know, Virginie, we're going to get more funky, we're going to get more isolated.
Yeah, I mean, the way they move is completely different. So
100%.
I really appreciate it.
Style-wise, I don't feel like it's a big change. Like when I see you dancing with Mackenzie or I see you dancing with Nini, I feel like I recognize the style of Ben, you know. It's probably more you feeling or the sensation, like the speed that you have in your hand, the transfer that you feel. That's probably more, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think my body's going to move the way my body moves, but like what I choose to do with them and the way I choose to move them is going to be very different.
Right. Somebody's asking a question in the chat.
Yeah.
That's a good one for Maxime.
Yeah, someone asks, going off of Robert's weight to rate ratio adjustment, what advice would you give to someone with less weight to add to control to the system? For example, someone who's 5'3", 120.
So for me, like, so I talk about that there's different C's, like there's 3 C's for leader and there's 3 C's for a follower, right? So, but those can switch if the leader's smaller. So the 3 C's, they share the first one, everybody, which is connection. We have to connect. Then the leader needs to calibrate and counter. So the leader needs to calibrate and counter the weight that's provided by the follow. The follow has to connect. The follow has to communicate. What are they communicating? How fast they're moving and how much weight to the system. And then they have to commit to what they've communicated. They have to be true to what they've communicated. So they have to connect, communicate, and commit. And leaders have to connect, calibrate, adjust, right? And then counter that weight. Although most of the time, the exception to that rule is if the follow can apply more weight to the system than the leader can, then the follow should calibrate to the needs of the system, right? So to what the leader can do. So there needs to be some sort of calibration there. So if I'm a smaller leader and I'm dancing with a bigger follow and that follow isn't calibrating, I have to try to find ways around that. So brace stepping, which is where you take a step where you're kind of you're stepping out in front of yourself and kind of bracing, almost like when you're dancing or when you're walking like a big dog and the dog wants to run and you don't want it to run. Each step you take is called a brace step, right? Where you're bracing the energy. So you can still move with the follow, but you can brace it. So you have to find different systems if the follow isn't calibrating to the fact that they can apply more weight to the system than you. So you do that by grounding yourself through brace steps, maybe even going to 0 a little bit in the connection, like don't give them the support they need so that they have to support themselves in that system. So you have to kind of balance that, right? So weight and rate. Rate is how fast they take a leg. Rate is how fast are they transferring weight. Weight is how much weight they're applying to the system, right? So those are my 2 calibrations. Weight being the one that most of the time I can apply more to the system than they can. When that's the other way around, ideally they're calibrating to you. Was that too bleh? Is that too much?
That was excellent.
No, that was good. I don't feel like everything I thought I was going to say, you said, but with better wording.
The important thing with your
fancier wording
is understanding that it puts the power in the leg rather than in the physical structure weight.
Right.
The more upright my pitch is, the more I'm just dealing with my actual mass. But as soon as we pitch and get athletic, we involve the leg. And that's where, if somebody's outweighing you connection-wise or body-wise, tall or short, actually, it doesn't matter. If they're outweighing you, that's the principle. That's the grounded that everyone's talking about. You know, so many people think about, I just lower my knees. But if you lower your knees and don't do anything to change how you shift the weight, it's not going to help you.
Right. And the thing that, like Maxime said, is he does that where he said he more grounds himself. He said, I don't know how that looks. He still delivers who he is. Like, he's one of my favorite guys to watch dance. And the thing that I love about watching Maxime dance is it doesn't matter who he's dancing with. He's true to himself. He just might ground himself a little bit more through an more athletic position and more brace stepping, right? He might take that brace step to adjust to the bigger follow, but he still keeps who he is relevant to the dance.
I feel like that affects also what's affect your dancing. It's the time of the day that you're dancing, the amount of dances that you've done before, you kind of react differently. And sometimes I feel like, oh my God, I'm way too forward, or I'm way too back, or I use too much my arms. You feel it, but sometimes it's just it's what it is. I'm like tired. I'm lazy. Like, so that happens. That happens to me. So
right.
I don't feel like there's I'm like, you have to obviously adjust. I'm trying to use my entire body. Sometimes I even put like, let's put my ears in that thing, you know, like that'll give me more leverage. Like, you know, and sometimes I'm like, damn it, I just gotta use my arm because I'm tired, you know. I mean, that's my feel. I don't know about you, Ben, but you're a little heavier than I am, but I don't know like how you react to that, like how you.
He's not going to answer you anyways, Maxime. He has no internet.
Yeah, I think my internet.
He's so frozen. I want to say, by the way, a brace step. I know you answered it, Cassie, that it's a brace step is a delayed weight transfer. It is, but more importantly is that it strikes outside of the body, right, in a bracing system. So the idea of a brace step, Wayne Bott at Annie Hirsch's house. For any of you who know Wayne Bott is, Wayne Bott at Annie Hirsch's house in 1994 taught me a brace step for the first time. And it was late at night. We're in Annie Hirsch's house. It's Monday night at the Open. And he's the first one who ever said brace step to me. And I didn't know what that meant. And he talked about bracing the position. So I know this isn't a dance lesson, but.
Was he short? That was a short guy, no?
Wayne was like 5'9".
I was like, okay.
So he was only like an inch taller than me. But anyway, so a brace step, the idea is that Wayne would go 1, 2, 3, and then he would brace the foot out in front of him. So it's a brace step, like you're trying to brace the weight that's acting. And then he used to say he would let Charlotte's pull be the thing that carries him to the foot. So as he goes 1, 2, 3, and he'd brace the energy that's acting upon him and then let that weight carry him to the foot. As opposed to if I go 3 and I'm over the foot on 4, right? Anybody who pulls on me is going to pull me right off my leg. I have nothing that's bracing or supporting the system that's pulling on me. So that's why, like the other analogy is, you know, if I'm walking a dog that really wants to run and it's a big dog, right? Each step I take, if I don't want it to run, is a brace step because I'm bracing outside of my body to resist the weight that's pulling upon me. So that's a brace step.
That's how I do before my sugar push generally, as I kind of go. I say like I'm stepping on floor, but I'm not committing to it. I'm like, I'm going, but I don't really want to.
Right. I'll tell you this, like, here's my plug for Sunday Science, right? So for my website. So like I do these slow motion videos on my Sunday intensives on my website. And I've done these slow motion analyzations of a bunch of people. And I've done you, Ben. Actually, I did old Ben, new Ben on one of mine. I did an old one with you and a new one of you to show the level of technique, how it's improved. Right. And the brace step the brace step was part of that. I did it with Glenn Ball at one point in time. I've done a ton on Kyle and Jordan. And every time I go like, look at the brace step, and you can see how many times the top pros take a brace step to be able to adjust and counter and calibrate to the weight that the follow is putting on it. Now I find the smaller the leader is, the more they use the brace steps to calibrate and counter.
And there is still a difference between a delayed weight transfer because that has intention of moving forward the whole time. And a brace step, you are actively putting.
Right. Because I can do a delayed weight transfer that is not a brace step.
Bingo. Because Maxime uses those a lot. Like he uses great lines where he's delaying his weight transfer, but there's no resistance in it.
Right.
Where a brace step, we are using resistance. Say, wait, don't pull me.
Right. You'll see it all over. Watch somebody as big as Kyle. Brace step, right? Like, and you see Kyle take that forward step, you know, and really outside of his body, and then he catches the follow, and then he calibrates, and the follow's energy takes him to the foot. I mean, it's a thing of beauty.
Something that I always add when I'm teaching follows who are learning to lead, because they tend to be even smaller than shorter men learning how to lead, is that they can add shaping. In addition, because it's a lot easier to rely on your larger muscle groups to add to that bracing action, as opposed to just being square on to your partner and depending solely on your shoulder and your arm. Whereas if you're like rotated into your arm a little bit, for instance, on count 4 of an underarm turn, you have so much more power because you're using larger muscle groups in your whole body to counter your follow's energy.
Right, 100%. By the way, somebody said, how do you make a brace step look good? Watch Kyle and Tori dance watch Kyle and Tori dance at Liberty. That's the one I use the most. I use that video more than any other video on YouTube to talk about perfect technique. And when you watch Kyle and Tori Liberty 2016 or 17, if you just put Kyle Red and I don't know if I think it still says Tori Smith, but if you put Tori in there and look that up and watch it in slow motion and watch how Kyle brace steps and watch how Tori uses that space, and it's perfection. So there's an instance of a much bigger leader and a much smaller follower, but him still adjusting and bracing, right?
All right, Alicia, we have covered a lot of things that are on our list, so I'm going to skip ahead.
I know.
Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So we've touched on this a little bit already tonight, but I want to ask more specifically, what's one thing you wish all follows understood about following leaders who are shorter than them?
So Maxime's first?
Yeah.
I don't feel like that matters. I don't have like, I don't want her to think that, I don't know. I feel like I would expect her to be more feeling connected, musicality connected to me, rather than my height, like try to deal with my height. Maybe like, again, I'm gonna go with that again, but maybe more weight related than height related again. And that's what Robert was saying again. He says everything. He was saying that the calibration of the weight to your partner, because that happened to me, and that's more my concern, is I've been pulled multiple times when I was doing like some styling stuff. I go under like arm and I'm on one foot, and obviously because like she's doing like a sort of styling too, and she puts like obviously more weight than I do, and I'm not Kai Red or John Lindo that can easily do that with like one hand on one foot and still like be able to hold her. You know, I'm not that kind of partner. So maybe I would expect her to adapt to my weight more than to my height.
My internet is working. Can I go?
Yes, go ahead.
While it's functioning.
Yes, please do.
So yeah, I mean, like Maxime was saying a little bit about, there's not a lot that I'm like, I mean, I'll just adjust if the follower is taller. One thing, like if I had to pick one, is when taller followers are doing ducks, or rather I should say when a follower who is taller than their leader is doing ducks. So they might not be a tall follower, they might be with a really short leader. But I find that bending their knees just a little bit on the duck until the top of their shoulder is at about armpit height of the leader, makes a big difference. Bending their knees more than that doesn't help at all. And if you're already shorter than that, you don't need to do it. You might, like some followers, just feel better and more stable with their knees bent doing ducks, but there's like a requirement to get to low enough. Because if you look at like, if my hand is here and that's my elbow, like lower than this, you get about the same amount of clearance. But when I get up to about here, you start getting less and less clearance. So when a follower doesn't bring herself down enough, like she's getting less and less clearance on the duck. But if she gets herself to about here, then that's as much the same amount of clearance she's going to get from my hand to my elbow, like all the way down to my waist. So there's like a certain threshold of get yourself down to that height, and it will give you much more room coming through the duck. Anything more than that, you don't need to do. You can do it if it feels better to you, but it's not required. But if you don't do at least that, his arm's going to hit you on the back of the head every time he leads a duck.
Robert?
Right. So for me, there's three things I want the follows to do. First of all, I need them to dance their height. I need them to be who they are, because as soon as I get to a follow, I'm going to calibrate their height. I'm going to calibrate everything about who they are, right? Like, so I can't have them making weird decisions about what height they are in some need to help me, right, in that moment. So I need them to be committed to who they are, right? So dance your height, because I can see how tall you are, so don't start making other adjustments, right? So first I need them to commit to who they are, height-wise and body-wise. Then I need them to gather information, just like we both should do. Gather information and then calibrate based on that information. So because even if they don't weigh more than me, if they're longer than me, the way that their levers and pulleys are longer. So the way that they can actually, from a physics standpoint, take me off balance is a factor, right? So they have to be, so I want them to gather information and then calibrate relative to that information. And some of that information is, oh, he's ducking me, so I have to calibrate my knees, like what Ben just said. So they need them to dance their height, gather information, and then calibrate accordingly. But that's actually something I would say to anybody about this dance. You need to gather information, be who you are as a dancer, gather information, and then calibrate accordingly.
Yeah. The dancing to their height, like that's such a big thing. Not a lot of the champion followers do it, but I do find in any other level in social dancing, they, like taller followers just have this tendency to want to match us. It's so much more natural in my physics world to deal with a tall world than a tall person dealing with a small world, right? Like Cassie has to do a lot more adjustments than I do to reach the same thing if I'm going tall, and she has to reach into something super low and short. There's a lot more going on for Cassie than there is for me. So definitely let us go and adjust, because also if it's not countered, if it's just shrunk down straight down in the knees, which is another thing, now there's no feel. We lose a lot. And that's the one I get. I get a lot of followers that just go straight down. Well, now I don't have any information. But the second one, and maybe it's a personal thing, but I also get a lot of taller followers that try and play a game of like intimidating or dominating through intimidation. So it becomes this styling thing where, okay, as a joke, come on in to a sugar push and like lean over the partner. But when it's a constant the entire time, it changes the dynamic of the dance, right? And I'm not trying to say like, you know, I have to be the in charge all the time, but the leader we need to recognize who is creating energy and then who is controlling and being the reactor actor. When you're constantly trying to go and dominate that position, it changes how much we can read the actual action, right? So as a joke, once in a while, but if we take away the ability to see action, reaction, action, reaction, because of that, like, and literally like towering over sometimes, going into a turn and intentionally trying to go taller and things like that. Like, why would you fight what's already going to be a struggle? Why would you fight that as a joke, I guess? So that's just another one that maybe it's a subconscious thing, but yeah.
I actually have an idea of where that comes from, but you go first, Robert.
It's funny occasionally when that happens, but I also want to say this, just from a purely biomechanics place, right? So if you try to alter your height, you're messing with your muscular structure, right? So the idea of shortening yourself means that, so I'm not trying to get into all this stuff, but like, you know, you have tonal muscles and phasic muscles are used in phases. Tonal muscles are used all the time, right? So phasic muscles are just muscles that we use occasionally, right? Those are usually our bigger muscles. And we don't want to use them, like we don't want them to be, you know, isometrically contracted the entire time I'm dancing. And if you try to shorten yourself, you're going to take your quadriceps and your hamstrings, and you're going to make those phasic muscles tonal, where they're having to carry some level of tone at all times, more than is necessary just to support your system. And if you do that, you're taking away your space to dance. You're taking your own space away to be creative, to create creativity, I should say. And you're going to make yourself heavier and more lethargic to me, to try to move you. Right. So the second you try to alter your height, you're altering your muscular structure to support this new system in a way it's not used to. So you're not going to dance as well. You're going to feel weird to me. You're going to take your feet away from me, like all of those things. So just from a purely biomechanics standpoint, it's bad for you to try to adjust your height to me. You need to dance who you are.
Same though for the leader. If he tries to straighten up to get taller, right? If we change the angles that we're dealing with to a 0 or a positive, we're also screwed. Right. So that's something I see short leaders do, is they try and stand up to their follower.
Right.
Yeah, you can elongate, but don't change your actual physics because you're going to move so differently.
Right.
So I'm curious if this is something that makes sense based on what you were speaking about earlier, Myles, is because this was something that I had to learn because I'm a very tall follow, and pitch and taking my full height was something I struggled with for a really long time. Figuring out how to mechanically do that in my own body, especially since I have a connective tissue disorder and my body doesn't like to hold itself together on its own, is very complex. And one of the things I struggled with is leaders. More often than not, a leader is going to be shorter than me. They wouldn't lead me forward. They would lead me down at an angle to the floor because they would swing from their shoulder, and that arc would take away height as well as length, right? And so every single count one, I was not only being led forward, but I was being led down into the floor. And because of those combined things, it was also accelerated. So what ended up happening for me is I would break at the hips and pitch more forward from my upper body just to be ready in case and I realized that wasn't the right way to compensate for that. I have since changed that. However, I feel like that's something taller follows tend to deal with a lot, and they've just created this unproductive way of compensating for that situation. And that's what creates that looming issue, is because they're just ready to be pulled down into the floor at any given moment.
Yeah, like, I mean, increasing your pitch, though, can also be from the hip going back, right? Mm-hmm. It's not going to work. If you pitch your shoulders forward more, you're going to be even more off balance, right? We're gonna take you off of that even quicker. I'm talking more like as you get in close, right? Just trying to loom over. But I think the idea of increasing a bit of pitch so that we can be a little more reactive, like you look at Kyle and Sarah, right? When Kyle dances with Sarah, he is pitched more than when he dances with a Bryn or Brandy or somebody, but he's not lowering in his legs, engaging those muscles that Robert was talking about there once in a while. And that's something that as a follower, I mean, a slight increase of pitch is going to help, but it's not going to change your dance too much. A big change, or not pitching with the compensation, right? Meaning that you're balancing your forward and backward weight the same as if I'm pitched here, and then as I go lower, if my hip doesn't compensate for my shoulders, screwed, right? Either way. And I think that's just something it's not natural for most people. And even as a taller person, I can't imagine, unless you're playing sports the entire time you get used to getting taller and afterwards, that level of athletic and mobility structure, I don't think is there for a lot of tall people. So that's a good thing to note, that you found that not pitching as much actually was more beneficial. Mm-hmm. But on the leader side, the way we standardly lead, right? If I drive from my hip with our standard connection, it's going to encourage the upper body to walk forward. So there's a little X that happens in our connection. If I pull from my shoulders, it's actually going to pull more of the lower body through. So if dancing with you, if I dance exactly the same as I would with Sarah, you're going to feel that drive down no matter what. Mm-hmm. So I do have to lead from my higher center, but I mean, we're talking belly button to sternum. It's not like I have to hold my hand up and dance at the shoulder.
Right.
So a lot of time, people watching here, you don't see the change. Like talking Maxime, when he's talking about the two versiones, you don't see a physical change in his height of hand, but how he initiates movement from his bottom tailbone maybe to his mid back, that's happening, but there's no physical thing to see there. So that's something we have to get used to, yes.
Mm-hmm. So the other thing too, by the way, is that, you know, what's not taught enough in our system is that leaders of any height, really tall or really short, shouldn't be targeting their hand position to them. They should be targeting their hand position to the follows, right? So I don't hand target my body, I target yours. So so when it comes to a sugar push, you know, if I'm doing a sugar push with you, Cassie, and then I do a sugar push with Alicia, the level of my hand at point of compression and point of redirection is going to be different. right? So, and there are ways of fixing that through outward tonal energy and system of arcs. There are ways that a follow can start to make adjustments for all of that, where you can encourage it prior to the moment of redirection without it feeling adversarial to the leader, right? So you just have to kind of do the right. Necessarily adjusting your pitch isn't necessarily the best way to make that happen, right? Because what'll start to happen is they'll start to make adjustments on their side for that pitch that you're not going to like either, right? So, so sadly, we should be teaching our leaders to target the height of the person they're dancing with. Again, it's all about that word calibration, calibrating the height of my hand, calibrating all of those things to the person that I'm dancing with, right? But there are tools, saving an arm, when you collect an arm, using outward tonal energy and arcs as a means of encouraging a leader to reshape their arms. All of those things can happen, right? So they're just hard to do.
Yeah.
Subtle. They're hard to visibly see.
They're hard to visibly see, right? They're actually not hard to do, but they're hard to visibly see, right? Right. I mean, Myles.
So, I know we are at about 6. We had 2 questions in our chat that we didn't get to. Estelle asked earlier, do you think or feel like some followers change their styling to match your height sometimes?
I think that's what I was getting at.
Okay. So if anyone wants to add anything to that, because I know we kind of covered that a
I think
little bit.
Maxime should answer it.
I don't feel like their styling changes. I feel like their mind process is different. So that affects probably a little bit of their movement, but I feel like the way they move, like, because what's styling, like the footwork that they're going to provide, like the way they're going to move, like it depends on like how you put the styling in which cases, for me, I feel like your styling, it's like really like your ability to move on top of being able to be fast at some point, be slow, give some contrast, be able to do some like footwork stuff, variations, that like everything that's your styling. So I believe that the fact that followers can process like, oh, I'm dancing with Maxime, so he's really like short, so maybe I'm gonna be careful. So that put her in this mind process that probably make her more stiff just because she overthink. But she shouldn't, like Robert said earlier. So do you think that makes her change their styling? Yes. Do you think that it shouldn't? Yes. I don't know.
No, I agree with everything you just said. That was perfect.
I mean, I think the better ones don't really change their style. I mean, just kind of like what Robert was saying, I think kind of across the board. Like,
when you said the better one, like you mean the better follower?
Yeah, the better. I mean, I think the tall follower,
Okay.
top tall followers, tall. Like, I don't think I don't feel like they change their style a lot with me. I mean, I think maybe they change functionally how they do a movement. They bend their knees a little bit more here. They connect a little differently, but I don't feel like the style of their dancing is drastically different. Just like I don't feel like the style of my dancing is drastically different. I just might make adjustments to make certain things work better.
Yeah.
Agreed.
What do you think, Myles?
He had to run for a second. I'm not sure if he's still with us. Yeah, he had to run for a second, but he'll be right back. Alicia, do you want to ask another question? I was actually going to address Krisha's question really quickly. Okay. And she said, how does a short person make themselves taller, extending or taking bigger steps? I can't picture how that works.
Yeah, I mean, there's releve. Obviously, they can releve. There's also shape that they can create. Like if I'm here, right? So I have so much space here, right? If I were to releve and create shape, I can start to create more space through releve and shape. So through releve and shape, I can create more space for a follow. Here, she only has so much space. There, she has more space, right? So like through shaping and through releve, right? You can create more shape for a follow, and you can encourage length within your own body. Not much, like there's a limit to it, of course, right? Before it starts to negatively affect you. But if you learn to use releve effectively, basically to lift up, right? To go up to lift in your feet and your ankles, right? So if you learn to understand releve and you learn to understand angled shape, right? You can start to create more room, right? Like, there was this thing called, there's a move called a tuck and roll or a whip tunnel, right? And so the idea is if I have a follow and I have her here and she goes underneath, now she has to duck underneath here and then come around. So if I'm dancing with Sarah Van Drake, I can go whoop, whoop, and I don't even have to think about it, right? If I'm dancing with Emmeline, I'm probably going to releve and create a little bit of shape to try to get more space on that level, which if I'm here with Sarah, I don't have to, and I don't create as much shape. But as soon as I releve and shape, I have more, and then I shape this side to create more space and height as we go.
Or you don't do that movement.
Or you don't do that move, for sure. But if I had to try to make myself taller, I would use releve and shape.
So you can use like a really good type of shoes too.
Lifts?
Right.
It's just, but when that's story of our life. I feel like since I'm a teenager, I wanted to be a little taller. So you're trying to extend your posture. But I remember when I was doing solo training, my teacher, they always told us that you can extend your posture without engaging your superficial muscles that makes you look really stiff.
You could just lay in one of those upside down tables every single night. Just hold some weights. Just do that every day.
But how many people they ask you, Ben or Robert or Myles, can I have a private with you because you short and maybe you can help me to be a little because when you're on the floor.
I don't think I've ever gotten asked that.
Oh,
I'm like,
no.
So no, but they arrive to me and they're like you other, I'm like, okay, so you try to extend and you try to be a little taller, but you just have to make sure that this is a little more flexible so you can work on your spine. So actually we're more here than here, that will make it really stiff, that posture. So
right.
That was my solo training teachers that use that for us to extend our posture without looking too stiff.
And especially in the limbs. Like Sean talks about all the time. I covet how big Sean can go from side to side of a follower because his legs are so freaking long. He can side to side easy with full weight transfers. I can't. I have to take 4 steps to make up his one. But he covets my leg lines, how long my extensions of my legs are. But that's that solo training because we learn how to maximize the joint rather than pulling it in. So a lot of people, when they lift their leg, lift from the thigh, and that's going to shorten I don't know if you can see, it shortens their hips. Instead of learning how to extend.
No, but that's for sure, the extension of your legs. I mean, you can see also John Kirkconnell, when he we do this contest that you walk really fast.
Oh, you're power walking.
You would think that Sean McKeever would beat him, but actually that's the opposite. And he used that extension of legs that comes from nowhere, and you're where did you pull that from? It's just crazy. So yeah, you can use that extension of legs, extension of arms, extension of posture.
Right. This is the average person picking their foot up, and then a trained dancer is extending that away. It's totally different muscle group, even how you do that, right? And everything that we deal with as short is talking about extending spine, not extending or stacking structure.
But feel that's couple inches. We're talking about couple inches.
Not even.
But couple inches can make difference.
Every millimeter counts.
Half an inch.
It's so funny. I have very few leaders that ever come to me and go, I can't even remember a leader coming to me and going, I want to work with you because you're short. I get a lot of people that come to me and go can you help me because you used to be heavy? I get more people that come to me about weight different, being either heavy or skinny. And so I get far more people that come to me about how can you become a good dancer while you're heavy than I ever get anybody who asks me about height.
Well, you are kind of, again, closer.
I mean, you're a little taller than us, so I feel we're in the low average and you're in the average.
Right.
Well, 5'4" is a lot below average. I'm way short. But like,
Of course, it's yeah.
so much of the tools that Robert's talking about, like now we're talking about weight. Like, I think you're absolutely right. Weight is way more important in every possible scenario than our actual physical height. But sometimes height isn't enough because we have to think about the difference of body types. Robert was talking about Mackenzie and Bryn. Bryn actually has a really long torso, and her legs aren't that long. Mackenzie, all legs. At my height, I have stupidly short legs. I have a 23-inch inseam, but I also have 29-inch thighs, which means that is a low bridge. There is a lot of movement, choreography-wise or sometimes trick-wise, that just will not work, no matter how tall or small. Like, I have a hard time trying to get Sarah through my legs.
There's just not enough room between your quads.
Right. This actually happened.
Dude, my muscles are in the way.
At Phoenix one year, follower, right as we start to dance, she's thinking, oh, he's strong, he's athletic, I can do a bunch of tricks with him. And so as soon as we start moving, follower goes to go, as I lead a monkey bar, she decided, oh, I'm going to dive through his legs. And she quickly realized that there was no room.
What was she hitting? I'm kidding.
Right? And she wasn't even a tall follower. She was actually my height.
I'm just saying, Alicia and Cassie, you have to find that link and put it. and if you can just put it on a loop, that would be the best. Right? King, king, king.
I want a gif of somebody trying to get through Miles's legs and just not making it. Not enough clearance. Like trying to squeeze through.
Oh, so at the same time, like, she didn't really calibrate it correctly. But
Right.
if that goes, that's impressive.
Right, of course.
So that's the thing.
Of course, right. It's
right.
the risk.
You have to
It's the
turn
risk to reward.
sideways when you slide
The
through.
risk to reward, right? Like sometimes we take that risk hoping for a big reward and it doesn't pay off. We've all been there. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, now,
It's exactly what it is.
if we were to do it now, would she have sat her hip out further to shorten her torso length? Yes. But that was the problem, is her torso and hip was taller than I am, and she, this way, is wider than I can gap.
Is that why she measures all of our thighs now before Jack and Jill? I don't know. I always thought
It's just, that's a tool that I just don't have access to, and so I don't lead
You
things.
could
in
have
that.
jumped a little bit. You could have done one of these. You know, give her a little room. Just boom, give her room.
You know, I want to ask something of the leaders. But actually, I find that there's more of an issue with tall follows sometimes, and because, like, for me, the average height follow isn't taller than me, right? So most of the followers are right around between 5'4" and 5'8", right? So I'm usually at their height or above it, right? But I do find that the exceptionally tall follows sometimes have a real disconnect in their, like, the time at which what's happening in their feet gets to their hand takes forever. Like, it's one of the reasons, like, when I used to say all the time to tall follows that they should look at Nini. So, because, like, and actually I met Maxime and Virginie at the UK Championships when you guys were taking lots of class and you were there together and you were fairly new. We're going back like 13, 14 years, right? Do you remember that?
About 15 years ago.
15 years ago, right? So I remember, like, all of us hanging out. That was the first time I met you, and you were taking all the classes with Virginie, right? So, and then I danced socially with Virginie that night.
And we danced together too.
We did. It's true. We had so much fun. I remember that. It was a great time.
Yeah.
But I remember going, wow, here's a tall follow who's super connected muscularly. Like,
Yeah.
I'm feeling immediately from her foot to what's going on in the hand. And from that day, and I love dancing with Nini, and we would once a year, we'd get 2 or 3 dances at the UK Championships up until recently. And I always look forward to it. It's like that one time of the year that I really get to, like, dance my butt off with her. And I tell all tall follows I know to watch her because her parts are so connected, right? And lots of times, I don't want to say most, but lots of times, tall follows don't connect their parts at a rate at which their weight transfer and what's going on in the foot gets to the hand in time for me to be able to respond. So it can start to feel a little loose in their travel time, right? And Bryn is the second one of that I'm like, wow. And I will say, like, because she's overcome it and now she's amazing at it. But there was a time when Mackenzie had a real problem of disconnect in her pathway from foot to hand, right? Where Nini's pathway from foot to hand was immediate. Like I felt it as fast as I feel it in a Sarah Van Drent. Right. So I do feel like as we talk about it from a short leader standpoint, I don't know if the tall follows covered this at all. It would have been interesting on your tall follow group to have a leader.
At the same time.
Ambassador from the other side.
Yeah, like, because the thing that tall follows need to learn is to make sure that the rate at which they communicate floor to hand needs to be at a point at which I can use that information. And sometimes it gets to me too late. I don't know if the other three leaders feel that, but I feel that sometimes with long follows.
But that's what happened, Robert, if that same tall follow had a tall leader, or are you saying that the tall leader would also could take that?
I think the tall leader has the same issue.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like what Nini what's like she's impressive for that is on top of being like tall. Back in the day, she was also like more thick than like how she is right now. Like, and that was, and me, I was like even lighter, and that wasn't an issue for me. And I don't know, I'm not trying to get all the flowers for me, but I feel like the fact that she trained also, like she practiced with me a lot. She had to compensate and work like faster with her feet, and you know, like, and give me less connection because that was too much for me, and that made her like really precise, really sensitive. And I'm not saying
sometimes
that,
like learning in what's called an optimal stress situation. So her learning to follow with where there's a compensation needed for the size difference put her into an optimal stress situation where she had to learn how to communicate better. So it probably did help a tremendous amount.
She's engaging more to power herself that bit.
Right. Because she's amazing. Like, she feels so good in the hand. And I don't think of her as a tall or as a short follow. I just think of her as highly communicative.
Like, it's
You
crazy.
can feel like when her toe wiggles.
She is her height, but when I put her in a whip, if I didn't have my eyes open, it would be hard to physically tell the difference between her and Tessa. And there's 5 inches, probably 4 inches difference.
Agreed.
And yeah, sure, the scapula is higher, but the way she connects into that would be pretty much the exact same level. And that's crazy.
so she's one of the followers that calibrates probably one of the best. Like, she adapts really fast.
Right.
So
And I have to say, Bryn too. Bryn
too.
first time I ever danced with Bryn, I was like because Bryn's so isolated in what she does, the first time I ever danced with her, I feared her being like disconnected at the hand, that I wouldn't feel what was going on because of the length that she was the length at which her muscular communication had to travel was great. Right. So, and then I was like, wow, no, she's right there. Like I don't even think of Bryn as a tall follower. She's just a very communicative follow. Like, that's it. She's neither tall nor short. She's just there. Right. She's super present.
I think most of the champions have that. It's just those two are very quick. They're the fastest adaptation.
Although some and I don't mind talking about it because I've coached them to fix this issue, but like, that wasn't always the case with Mackenzie. That wasn't always the case with Susan Kirkland, right? So Susan Kirkland at first, she was tall and long and powerful and fast, but she wasn't always communicative in the hand. You could lose her in the hand. You didn't know where she was, right? So that seems to be the rate at which what happened at the floor that got to the hand was too slow. So then the information didn't get to the leader fast enough, right? That's not the case anymore, but that was the case, at one point in time.
Right.
how do you feel, Ben? Because like you it doesn't seem like it's a huge issue for you to dance with like really tall followers, and you dance with Nini like no one. So
I know they're amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even like phase me. I guess most of it's like I have to like really think about, wait, what am I doing differently with tall followers? Because I don't think about it.
But you also started.
One thing I do,
like Ben, you were teenager when you started partner dancing. So you were still growing as well.
Yeah.
So you've adapted your entire time.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing I just do want to acknowledge, though, that with just talking about, I've been talking about Virginie and Bryn and Mackenzie, is I do think one thing that I think Mackenzie does that is an exception, and I guess exceptional to the other tall followers, is I feel like she's really the only one who also does lots of like athletic, like floor stuff too.
Yeah,
like
true.
like Virginie and Nini tend to stay more like up here with their stuff, and Mackenzie's not afraid to like get on the ground and do a lot of that stuff, which I do think that is definitely more challenging for taller followers,
right,
especially if they're trying to make it in between Miles's legs. But anyways, and I think
was it Mackenzie?
No,
Oh, okay.
no,
Well,
the
like-
person was actually close to my height. She wasn't that.
That is one thing where I actually do notice, like when Mackenzie does that, I do feel like I have to give it, like I have to make sure that I pay attention to how long it takes for it, because just like if her leg's going to go around to create some kind of ride versus someone else's, like it's traveling a circle that's twice as big as Sarah's. And so I used to sometimes catch myself like going too fast when she would do those things. And now that was something I had to calibrate for a little bit, that just like, okay, these motions just physically, they cannot happen as fast. And I kept cutting her off in a lot of these motions. And once I kind of recalibrated that, now it's like really fun to do those things, because you get like, if I'm patient enough to wait for it, I get something extra out of it. Sometimes it can be really fun to play with.
And she's gotten so good at communicating it, like putting the traction control on. She's telling you, no, I need it slowed down. And you're like, yes, got it. Here you go.
Yeah, I mean, most of the stuff, I mean, I feel like she doesn't need my help to like do any of it. It's just like, I just have to make sure I don't like pull her out of it before she's done doing it. But it's like, she's like, it's like she's got the wingspan of an albatross, and yet she can like get herself down on the ground, do all this crazy and then come back up and make it work. And all I have to do is just wait and hold on.
You have to calibrate to the width of her arc for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like now the ride starts. As her leg just takes out everybody else in prelims,
Yeah.
she just chops all the competition down.
Beautiful legs, beautiful lines.
Gorgeous.
That actually,
Right.
I rondéed her and didn't realize how close we were to the audience. I didn't take into account her leg span. So I'm like, for me, can't kick anybody. Lead her in a rondé, she was like, and the whole like, what?
Remember that move that like it's not as popular anymore, but it used to be the one where you'd bring the follower into like one arm was folded and one was around the neck, and then you'd shoot them out with a
Hammerlock.
big ass rope.
Hammerlock neck
Yeah.
move to the rendezvous.
Imagine that with Mackenzie. Like you just like whoosh, just into the audience. Like just her leg goes over the audience. That'd be incredible.
With the biggest sugar push compression after all.
My pro, she kicked me the first time we did that in country.
Ooh,
The one
I
that
just
was-
saw
because
this
of
last
that-
question.
she didn't compensate, and I snapped it, and she whack, just kicked me right in the ribs. And realized, oh, I gotta wait a second longer to lift that leg out.
So I have to go in a second, but this last question I really like, which is like, what advantages do we have? I think we're quicker generally. Like, I mean, I just think like, I mean, not as a rule, like all of the shorter leaders are not all quicker than all of the taller leaders.
We're
but, like,
cuter. We're cuter.
That too. I also think that, but I mean, I do think like it is easier for us to move more quickly.
Bye, Ben.
And so I think like that's something like, huh?
You were frozen.
Can I want to say this too,
Oh,
on a societal level, right? Smaller guys who are a little shorter, who for whatever reason their personality has been that they want to get to the forefront of something, be whatever that might be, artistically, athletically, whatever, have to work harder, because they have to work harder at being seen. So even subconsciously as young people, if we had outgoing personalities, we had to work harder at being seen. So we cultivated that from a very young age, like to work. Like I played football. in high school, I played football and I was the shortest offensive lineman and the shortest linebacker in the league, but I started both ways. But my work ethic had to be greater than. I had to be in front of the coaches' faces more. I had to do all of those things. And so whether it's acting, singing, dancing, athletics, if you have something as I'm just going to say it as a male, as a male, you have like this shorter stature, you have to work harder to be seen. And I feel like when you look at at least the leaders you have here, we're all very good at delivering those moments of laughter, of comedy, or of just presentation, where we're very good at not only showing off the person we're dancing with, but making sure you recognize who we are. And when you're big and tall and statuesque, the world sees you whether you want to be seen or not. And so we have to, like, societally make us be seen. We have to tell you to watch us.
Big personalities.
Forget dancing. I think our personality, the smaller leader's personality, tends to be a little bit more like, hey, I've been fighting my whole life for the world to look at me, and this is an avenue that I can use it.
I believe that shorter, easier for dissociation. Like when you take a bigger person, for that person, it's harder to dissociate his movement. So the look of it will be a little more stiff, a little more two-dimensional. But for a shorter person, it's easier to dissociate, and that can be taken to science. I don't know. I have the tendency to see like a shorter person will have a more fluid movement than a taller person.
Yeah, like
percentage-wise, it's how it is. So maybe it's because of the length of the muscles. Shorter the muscle is, maybe like, or the articulation, easier to dissociate. I have no idea. That you should ask a doctor, like science, PT, whatever.
Well, if you think just biomechanically, the longer the bones are in between each joint, the chances of seeing that bone look stiff before the roll of the next joint happens is greater. So the closer the joints are together, the more you get what becomes a fluid. Like if I want to create a snake out of sticks, the longer the sticks in between the joints, the more angled it would look as it goes. The shorter the sticks in between the joints, the more it would look like fluid. So the shorter the bone length in between the joints creates a fluidity sense.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, that's totally what he meant. All right, I have to run, guys. We have a hot tub reservation in 5 minutes, which I don't want to miss because of COVID protocols.
And me, I have like a dinner reservation, so I have to go.
But I apologize for my internet being so sketchy on and off. I've never had that problem here at this hotel. I thought it would be fine.
Don't worry about it.
Fine.
But thank you for having me. It was so nice to be included. Like to just sneak in there into the short club. I was really happy to be the tallest one in this group.
We don't know that yet. We don't know that yet.
We'll settle this, Robert.
We don't know that yet. We don't know that you're the tallest one in this group.
That's true. Next time I see you, we will do this and we'll get back to everybody.
We'll have a usual suspects lineup scene.
All right, thanks, Jackie.
Bye, Ben.
Bye, Ben. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I'm gonna have to leave too. That was nice to see you. I feel like that's gonna be our next 2 years. Hopefully things get better, and I'm kind of sad that no one of you will see Tori pregnant in life.
Oh, and
by the way, everybody, congratulations!
Congratulations, guys.
Like, it's so fantastic.
We're so excited. That's gonna be a little girl. Like I'm ready. I'm ready. Thank you, guys. I hope she's gonna be taller than I am. I mean, Robert, your son is taller than you, right?
Okay. So here's the thing about height. So when I was born, both of my lungs collapsed at birth, and so I was in an incubator for 8 weeks. So my mom couldn't hold me for 8 weeks. So they told my mother I was going to die. So they said that they had to give me this steroidal compound that had never been used on children before. So they used it on me. They said it'll save my life, but it's going to cause problems. So it saved my life. But I'm the shortest man in my family. My father's 6'1". All the men in my family are over 6 foot. I have a size 11 shoe. Like when they measured my wrists and my feet and my ankles when I was 9 years old, they said he should have been 6 foot. But because this steroidal compound saved my life, it also stunted my growth. My baby teeth grew in without any enamel. I had asthma, all these problems as a kid, but it saved my life. But so my son still has my genetic makeup, which is all the men in my family are over 6 foot. And so, and Nicola's family, all very, very tall too. So my son is just shy of 6 foot right now. So he's definitely taller than I am. People go, where does he get that from? And I'm like, I make jokes about it. But honestly, my genetic makeup should be taller, but because of what happened to me at birth, I'm short.
Yeah, so that's not my no, that's not me. Tori's short, I'm short. Sorry. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
Bye-bye.
That's awesome.
All right. Are there any last thoughts either of you would like to share before we wrap it up, Myles and Robert?
Like I just think to have that one point there about like just tips about advice or making themselves present, stand out, as Robert was saying. Dance-wise, I think one of the easiest things that people don't even think about is just the presentation factor of who is in the foreground and who is in the background, right? So as a shorter leader, being a male, I call them guy lights. I always want to make sure that I have a feature moment for myself, either by going in the foreground or having my followers stopping where I'm doing motion. But it's just so easy on a pass, like in a whip even, do the whip or an underarm turn where you're facing the audience instead of turning your back. It's little things like that that just help present us where it's so easy to fade into the background. Obviously, if the floor configuration, you have to decide, am I doing audience, judges, things like that. But just playing with that perception, huge advantages from that.
Hey, Myles, on top of all that, tell them about your website.
So somebody had mentioned it earlier, and just in my shirt, train smarter. I should have said train taller. So Tessa and I, we have swingliteracy.com, where we're talking all about, we have multiple programs. Currently, we're right in the middle of a 12-week boot camp, which takes us from just understanding things about how our bodies move, how our brains learn, and combining that to fill in a lot of the gaps potentially that we may have had growing up as dancers, or maybe in a short span of dancing. And it just, everything's built on, our whole philosophy is built on understanding science, but delivering exercises, drills, and getting your body to understand what it has to do in order to perform the dance or whatever you're trying to do. Play soccer, swim, skipping rope. Right, Robert?
Right.
So
right.
You can find it at swingliteracy.com or milesandtessa.com. Miles spelled with a Y.
Fabulous. Do you like why I just took over, Cassie and Alicia? I'm just like, I can't help myself.
Okay. That reminded me that we need to plug our own thing. So thank you.
Right?
Well, just so you know, my next thing was going to be Cassie and Alicia, tell us what's going on.
But why not Robert?
Yeah, you need to give us some last thoughts first, Robert.
First of all, I really appreciate you both doing this. I was doing one of my Sunday intensives. They're called Sunday Science. And I was doing one of my Sunday intensives when I came across your video of musicality and working through the spotlight situation. And you're both very smart and very good at what you do. So I first want to thank you both for doing this, because I really like what you do. I even told everybody on my site that they should go check out your guys' stuff. So congratulations to both of you. And it's so smart,
Thank you so much.
so funny, it's so well done. It's really, really super well done. And I feel like a lot of people, more people need to know about it. So, which is great. So I'll leave you with that.
Appreciate that.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
I will say that if you like, if anything that I talked about tonight rocked your world as far as things like the muscular structure and any of the mechanics and any of that kind of stuff, I do have Royston Method and roystonmethod.com. The whole thing for me, I'm over 50. I've been in this business over 30 years. For me, Royston Method's a life method, and it's about living your life as a champion, right? So my whole thing is to make people professional movers, both emotionally and physically in life. right? So that you understand what that's all about. So we do fitness stuff, we do training stuff. I have guest people on all the time, people like Eric Franklin and Darren Oline from Down to Earth with Zach Efron and Darren Oline. I have Myles and Tessa on, lots of people on RoystonMethod.com. And I wanted to say, anybody on here, if you wanted to join I have a judges training. I'm starting a judges training. So I'm doing a judges training seminar. So if you guys are interested in that, go to RoystonMethod.com. If you use the code GoDance, because I just created this code for GoDance in Austin. If you use the code GoDance, you'll save almost $100 on your membership. So anybody that's on here that wants to join Royston Method, use GoDance for a code, and all lowercase, one word, GoDance, and get a discount on it if you guys are curious. But that's it. I think this is awesome. I love all these topics, and I would love to come back because I love to talk more.
Oh, we would love to have you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. And especially like having your feedback on what we do. It's just so meaningful because we both look up to you, and like, it's amazing. Anyways, a little bit about Nerdy West Coast Swing. If you have no idea who we are, and this is your first time here, Alicia and I have been running free weekly, basically Zoom analyses of great dances, where I use my training as a 3D character animator to break things down frame by frame. We draw. My drawing. I can't draw.
You
but
know
it
what? It
creates
works.
entertainment. It works. I get the point across. And what we want to focus on is helping people train their eyes, because once you have a really well-trained eye, it makes it so much easier to learn, no matter who you're taking a class from, no matter who you're watching. If you're able to differentiate time and space just by looking at it and understand the cause and effect through time of a West Coast Swing connection in particular, you can see things that most people can't see. And it makes it possible for you, when you're taking a lesson, to take in what the teacher doesn't have the time to say or to talk about. Because I know whenever I'm teaching a large group, there are so many things I want to say, but I just don't have the time. I have to prioritize what I'm talking about. And that's what all dance teachers do. So when you come to a lesson with the ability to see what the teacher doesn't have the time to say, you can learn so much faster. And we also just want to empower you with like options, so you become a proactive dancer. Like, you make conscious choices about your dancing instead of just taking rote instruction that has been applied to you. You can make intelligent choices about how you want to dance and why. So that's what we do. If you want to just support all of our free stuff, we have a $5 a month Patreon tier, but we also have a $35 a month Patreon tier where we do even nerdier things every week. We've also started doing animations for analyzing music, so that way you actually learn some music theory and have a better way of visualizing different elements in a song and how they layer together. We've been having a lot of fun with that.
Yep.
So.
Animations and writing out sheet music and whatnot.
Yep.
So you can visually see everything.
Yep.
Send me the link to your Patreon.
Patreon.com/nerdywcs.
Alrighty, well, I think we're good. I think we can wrap it up.
I know. Thank you all so much for joining us. Yeah, this has been amazing. So
Special thanks to Myles and Robert and
yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Super great. Please keep us in mind to do more. I want to support you guys as much as I can.
We would love to have you guys back.
We would love
anything you guys do. Both of you request friendship on my Royston. It's called Royston's Live Feed Lessons. Or I'll send you guys a link on Facebook. And then anything you guys do, like, advertise on there.
Thank you.
To my website people. I'd love for them to know what you guys are doing. So as you guys are shooting out advertisement, please do that.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Definitely. All right. We will let everyone go. Thank you
all for joining us. Bye.
Awesome. Ben? Ben, can you hear us?
Can you say the question one more time?
I would have bet $1 million. I would have bet $1 million Ben was going to say, repeat the question.
Dang it.
Bro.
All right. do someone else and come back to me. I'm gonna try switching.
All right, Maxime,
Okay.
how about you?
Can you repeat the? I'm kidding. Actually, like that will be legitimate for me because I'm French, you know. So bye, Ben. Bye, Ben.
More quick
Bye, Ben.
comments.